now going to call the Carroll County Board of Commissioners February 29th work session to order. The first thing on our agenda is Safe Streets. Do you want me to postpone that to 1?
No, ma'am, I got one here.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So I will call Danny Yates, Director of Public Safety, Public Works, excuse me. And we have some members from the Pond Company with us.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Yeah, tonight I wanted to come and introduce the guys from Pond and Company, the ones that we approved to do the safety action plan for Carroll County that would help put us in line to receive federal funding for some safety projects in the county. So right now I'd like to introduce Mr. Matt Flynn. He's from Pond. We got one still not here. Maybe he'll show up in the next minute or so.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here and be a part of this process and this project. Richard Fangman, my boss, he's hopefully on the way. I-20 wasn't ideal on the way here. So, do you all have this in front of you or copies?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. While those are getting passed around, what I want to do today is really just introduce myself, Richard Fangman as well, the project team, and just give you a quick overview of what this project is and where we're at to date with it. And so this safety action plan, the best way that I found to describe it is, for every fatal crash that's on the roadway network, national average is about $5 million in societal cost. That is a holistic cost of every fatal crash, whereas opposed to investing upfront in plans like this Safe Streets for All action plan and some of the programs and specific projects that will come out of this plan, it's not just aimed at saving lives specifically, but also there's a financial benefit to investing in this upfront and establishing the policies and strategies to move forward successfully. So on the side with the map here is some preliminary analysis that we've done, pulling historical crash data, identifying certain fatal crash locations. This is really a 30,000-foot look at the county as a whole, unincorporated Carroll County. Next steps are really to diagnose some of these issues and patterns that we're seeing here, to try to hone in on certain specific, I'll do air quote, hotspot areas, areas where we're seeing trends of crash rates that are higher than expected, to try to really get at the heart of the issue and create these programs and strategies to address that. A little bit of what the plan will be looking at specifically includes historical crash data, traffic volumes. We'll be looking at general travel patterns, heavy truck routes and where those may be being violated today, and some programs or enforcement campaigns that we can do to get those heavy trucks where they're supposed to be, as well as taking a look at some of the vulnerable users on the roadway and trying to protect those users as well. And so with that, we are, this second one here with our smiling faces of the project team, you can see the project team and some of the stakeholder advisors. We are in the process currently of coordinating with some of these advisors and requesting their representation throughout this process. This overall process is going to work extremely well if it's very collaborative. Even though some of the surrounding cities in the county may have their own SS4A action plans, the overall cooperation with everyone in the county really ensures that those transition areas from unincorporated to their city limits is a smooth transition. We don't have this piecemeal plan pulled together. And then at the bottom of that page, you can see some milestones coming up. We have had two, oh, hey, Richard.
Yeah.
We've had
I
two.
went to the wrong courthouse. Historic courthouse.
No worries, no worries. This is Richard Fangman.
Yeah.
So some upcoming milestones. We've had two of our project team management meetings so far. We're coordinating with those, kind of getting in the weeds of some of those meetings. Upcoming meetings, we've got our first stakeholder advisor meeting scheduled preliminarily for April 23rd.
Thank you, ma'am.
Shortly after, we've got our first public engagement event, and we're going to get into briefly what that looks like and how to get involved with the community. So those are our first two stakeholder and public event upcoming meetings, along with some additional meetings you can see on that calendar there. Richard, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe speak to how to get involved in some of the social pinpoint tools that we've got?
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Richard Fangman. Again, I apologize for going to the wrong building here. So, but I think I got myself straightened out. But no, we're really excited to be working with you all. And I know Matt talks a lot about sort of that need for safety and what we can achieve. One of the things is trying to reach out to your community and make sure that we're getting everyone involved in this process. And he talked a lot about the stakeholders we'd have. Some of the tools we'll be using along this process will also include some online opportunities for folks to get involved. And so one of the things we've used is a tool called Social Pinpoint, that it is a tool, a website you go to, but it has a map, and people can kind of put all little points down for any places that they have concerns. We found a lot of times we'll get feedback sort of across the whole jurisdiction from folks who want to participate in that way. But there's no substitute for getting out and meeting people in person, and that's why we have these public meetings scheduled as well, and these meetings with the stakeholders. And I don't know if you had mentioned to them trying to get someone involved from there.
No, not yet. That's good.
So
Good transition.
one of the things we also were hoping to do was for this stakeholder committee would be to maybe get an appointee from each of you, to either you or someone that you would like to have to attend, these meetings as well, to make sure that your communities are represented as we move along. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of.
I don't know how much time we were allotted for, but are there any questions or initial responses?
I guess one question that I have, to give an example, in Public Works, we've kind of transitioned away from painting lines on the roadways to using like a thermoplastic, which is what you see on I-20, the thicker heated process. So obviously that lasts longer. It's more reflective and that sort of thing. So besides your group just organizing and getting feedback from the community, do you all have industry standards, like using that one example of stuff that you're bringing to say, hey, this is something new that you may need to transition to have longevity or whatever the situation may be? And that's just one example that I can think of on the roadways that we've transitioned to.
Absolutely, yes. We'll be looking at best practices from around the country, best practices also from Federal Highway Administration. You brought up pavement marking, and that's something that's interesting because they've got new standards that for reflectivity and for keeping up those pavement markings, that are things that the Public Works Department will have to be making sure that they get to more regularly to meet these standards that came out the last couple of years. So we're aware of those, but there's also a lot of other tools in the toolbox as well. When we talk about what are best practices for putting in signage, things like chevron signs. You have a lot of sort of rural roads that have curves to them and not much shoulder. So it's very expensive to go back and retrofit all those shoulders, but there are things you can do to along with that, with signage, with things that you'll see the DOT has done around a lot on their routes with these rumble, they call them rumble stripes, where they put the rumble in the middle. So those are things that we can look at, and we've got data and information on, not just what's the laundry list, but where are these tools most effective. And so we'll be developing, as we move through this, sort of that toolkit that we'll call it, that will be then applied when we get to that middle of the process. So this first stakeholder meeting will be really kind of trying to get their input a lot, and then as we get to that second stakeholder meeting, that's when we'll kind of be probably doing a work session, rolling up our sleeves with everyone, kind of breaking out that toolkit, and having a good work session like that.
And just to add real quick, we'll also be working closely with Ronnie and the maintenance department as well. And so this plan ultimately will not only be ideal, but feasible from a maintenance standpoint as well. We don't want to, create this plan that can't be, maintained long-term. So long-term success is the goal, and that'll be the strategy going into this process.
Thank you.
So it's been a while since we chose y'all as our company, so if you want to do like a quick little refresher about who you are, because I think I just saw, did y'all win an award with UGA or an engineering award recently, or you're up for a nomination of one?
Oh, for you, in UGA?
Yeah, I think I
Now,
saw y'all
I
got some
think that our
awards.
planning in LA and Civil got that.
The engineering part, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't recall do you recall what award they got? I think they got nominated for something. I don't know if they got
I
it.
think we're in the running. We've got our-
Okay, so if you want to share a little bit about your company, just to
Yeah,
refresh
absolutely,
everybody, because it's
yeah.
been a while since we chose them to do our plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're Pond and Company, so we're headquartered here in Georgia. Our headquarters is in Peachtree Corners, so just northeast of Atlanta. We've done a lot of work around Metro Atlanta and in the state of Georgia. We have various groups within Pond. Our whole company is about 700 people. We're in the infrastructure group that works in transportation and all that, which is about a third of our company. And the work we do is primarily in the southeast, where other parts of our company do work kind of across the country. We've done a lot of work on transportation plans and traffic engineering, and that's sort of the group within infrastructure that Matt and I are in. And we work on helping people determine where they need to put investment in roads through like transportation plans. We've also done a lot of work on these safety type projects. In fact, we worked with Villa Rica a couple years ago and did their transportation master plan that they had in the city of Villa Rica.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, does anybody else have any questions for him?
I just have a couple, so I guess this is funded through USDOT,
Yes, it is.
okay? And so how do y'all measure your effectiveness? In other words, we put all this effort in, but what are the results? So like at the end of the day, if we didn't have this, would there be 18% more accidents or 20% more fatalities or so much more traffic congestion? Or in other words,
Yeah.
how do you know the effort is worth it?
That it's worth it. That's a good point. Well, one thing that this process will do is help to identify what are some projects that could be done on your end, also things that could be submitted for funding through the feds to get some funding. But as far as safety improvements, the goal of this is to come out of it with with a program. So you end up with performance metrics at the end that you can say, well, what is our trends here? What are these best practices? This is what we would expect to see if we implement these things. And then the idea is that you would go back and kind of check, as you go through that process as to how that's going. And that's one of the things that the feds want to see as they move forward, trying to look at more and more implementation money down the road as to how the plan's effective.
And I guess roundabouts and traffic congestion and all that, you would look at areas for that?
We will. One of the things that is important about a community like yours is you don't have a lot of traffic signals that the unincorporated county maintains, a few if any. And so then it really gives you that opportunity to look at, well, how do we want to look at traffic control moving forward as you continue to grow? And more communities are trying to stay out of the signal business and let GDOT on the major routes handle that, and doing a lot with roundabouts. We're working now with Effingham County, which is in the Savannah area, suburban Savannah area, and they're doing just that, trying to really stay with roundabouts as a major tool. So there's places they work and places that they don't, and those are things that we want to make sure, and different communities want to use them more or less. But there's that in the toolbox. There are other safety type of intersection improvements that can be brought to bear as well. And we'll again, that whole toolkit, we'll want to make sure, and that those roundabouts and what the pros and cons of those will be part of that, that toolkit that we use midway through, and leave you with.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Did I get at it a little bit? I'm
Yep,
happy to
thank you.
talk more about it.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Yeah.
your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I do apologize again being late. I saw courthouse and I saw this is an historic court building, and I went in and then I went up looking around and doing the wrong things.
So Commissioners, the next item is the amendment for the EMS agreement. It's actually going to be 9.1 on the agenda, but we are going to remove it from the agenda and put it on the April one. So today is basically a lot of information, give you some opportunity to think of questions and some more conversation between now and the April meeting. But at this time, I am going to go ahead and call up Greg Schulenberg, our Executive Vice President, Chief Administrator Officer, and Chief Information Officer for Tanner Health System, along with Gary Thomas, Vice President of the Campus Support Systems. And we also have here in the back is members of our own EMS committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board, for allowing us to present today. I have with me, of course, Gary Thomas. He needs no introduction, and he'll help with this as well. We are going to lay out the basis for an amendment to the EMS services with the addition of an ambulance for what will be the Sand Hill area in our proposal. And I'll try to give you some background to this decision process and tell you a little bit about what we've done with the ambulance service since October of '22 in our acquisition. So if we could just jump into this. Everything starts with call volume. As you can see by these stats, we're projecting a pretty big 24, 19,000 plus calls. That'll be about a 3% jump from 2023, which will be the largest increase over the last years, some of those, of course, being the COVID years. But that call volume precipitates a need for more service. So just moving to the next slide.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Strangely enough, we had some technical difficulties right before the meeting.
That's all right. In the next slide, we compare to neighboring counties our service. And as I take you through this looks at population and population growth from 20 to 23. It looks at land area, which of course Carroll County has the largest land coverage for the EMS service. It looks at the demand in terms of call volume, and then the number of units, trucks, ambulances, we refer to them in many ways. We currently have 6, and that results in about 8.5 calls per shift, so per day, per unit, which is on the upper end of what is comfortable for both the wear and tear on the truck as well as the crew servicing, and then the length of the runs of those ambulances. So as we move through, the next slide will just be the same representation. You can see we're at the upper end, and if we have the call volume in 24 that we project, that call volume will move to about 8.8 or almost 9 calls per unit per shift. So this is a coverage analysis, and really if you just look to the right, you'll see the what-if scenarios. If we add a truck, given that same call volume, we'll be at about 7.5 on the calls per unit per shift, and then an 8th truck would bring it down to even 6.7, but we're proposing at this point one new unit or one new truck. This is a percentage of the runs, the trips that a truck makes by the community. You can see 83% of the calls we get are between Carrollton and Villa Rica, and what we're proposing really services both of those areas. So the longest run is around the Sand Hill area, and I think you know from your other work you do, maybe with fire stations and the like, that's a pretty big and populous area and growing area, so we certainly see it as well. Next, this breaks it down by unit. I think it's important to look at unit 45 and 46, and then on the other side of the page, I think it's 42 and 41 represent those Carrollton Villa Rica units and the percentage they cover. The text there, if you could go back, I'm sorry. The text there shows that we've added a supervisor unit. It's a quick response vehicle, and this is to take some of the pressure off the ambulances. We dispatch that supervisor unit on its own to a call, and many times, as you can see, 1,244 of those, they land on site first. Sometimes they can start that care, and other times they can divert that ambulance to another call, a more emergent call, if they get there and find that the call is not not in need of an emergency unit or as quick, we can divert those calls, and sometimes we send them away altogether. This is really just to show we're trying to alleviate as much pressure on these trucks as we can. Okay. And this is percentage of runs by fire zone. We were kind of asked to put this data in that might be have some relevance here tonight. Help me, if you would, Gary. Stations 3 and 6 are the ones most impacted by this. 3 and 9, I'm sorry, are the zones most impacted by this requested change. And as you can see, large zones by percentage there. Yes, thank you. And just a representation of where the new unit will most serve. And if we're allowed to partner and purchase this unit, the lighter colored emblem there is where we would put it. That represents Sand Hill. Tanner would then, and West Georgia Ambulance would then partner to put a station there, at a later date, so we could run it out of there. For the time being, we'll probably house that truck in the Villa Rica station and then mobilize it during its shift to the Sand Hill area for shorter runs. And then this is, I guess, atypical of a presentation here, but did want to show what we've done since the acquisition for the West Georgia Ambulance Service. Just to break it down into chunks and to be efficient here with your time, we had a lot of compensation work to do there within West Georgia Ambulance. Below the 50th percentile in compensation, a lot of open positions, which puts stress on the crews that we do have. So we've added to salaries and, to compensation for the crews. We've improved IT, so now all the trucks and the stations are wired and wireless. That allows PCRs, patient care records, to be completed between calls. That was putting an unnecessary burden on the crews to do it after the shifts. We've synced the radios with the county, so 800 megahertz radios. We've installed drug boxes, narcotic controls within the ambulances. We've fitted ventilators and other clinical equipment for children. So you can use standard ventilators on children, but it's not ideal. So we went ahead and did that work. And as I like to say, just for fun, we've added 4 new ambulances in the last year. 3 because just really end of life. And during our due diligence, we saw that we had some aging ambulances, but to say they quit a little ahead of schedule would be an understatement. So we replaced 3. We had 1 accident, and we were able to replace that with some insurance compensation to help with that. But overall, we've put about a little over $3 million in the business since acquisition. About half of that has been around compensation. I am happy to say we've been able to hire, we've been able to fill those positions, we've been able to give some crews some rest and kind of alleviate that extra shift. So we've seen efficiencies as a result. Really proud of the work we've done, but all in on West Georgia Ambulance. So this is just really text that's probably more eloquent than the way I just stated it, but it really just says what I just said. We're also investing in the front office for billing purposes, lowering the revenue cycle. We have added training, so we're now certifying or trying to certify our own EMTs and paramedics so that we don't have to outsource that. And when you get in the hiring market, it can get tough to get qualified candidates. So we're starting that work as well, QAing everything, both financially and clinically, and trying to build a really tight service. So this is the way we look at the budget as it relates to a new ambulance. If you go to the bottom of the page, you can see the ambulance and onboard medical equipment. So we'll purchase a new ambulance for about $320,000. We're always looking for deals, bargains, overruns, that sort of thing, but $320,000. It's about $80,000 to equip it, and then running it year over year has a cost of about $750,000. So those are the expenses and the maintenance to purchase and run a new ambulance to keep in mind as you consider these in the future.
So Commissioners, we'll have a copy of this for you tomorrow, and we'll make sure that it's been added to the agenda tomorrow too, so that people will have access to it. But in the meantime, do y'all have any questions for Mr. Schulenberg?
Mr. Schulenberg, thank you for being here today, and for everyone, Mr. Thomas and everyone that's on your committee here. A few questions. So the call volume numbers that were listed, is that actual call volumes to 911, or is that the numbers broken down to what the ambulances are running? So in other words, we know the number one call into 911 is an accidental call from children. So what I'm saying is, are we comparing those numbers to neighboring jurisdictions as far as, is it just gross volume calls, or is it actually the numbers divided between the ambulance units?
Those are, and Gary did most of this research, but those are the actual calls into the runs of the ambulance.
Those are actual dispatch calls. If 911 determines during the telephone call that an ambulance is not needed, then those are not included, even if it originally was a 911 call for an ambulance. But if they dispatched a truck and a truck started toward that call, they're included in that, and we ask for the same information for all the other counties.
Okay. And then I'm curious on the numbers that look like a little over 20% call volume in the Villa Rica area, and then 60-something% in Carrollton. So if you look at population, Carrollton's probably just a little less than double of Villa Rica. So I'm just curious, as you get into, obviously Carrollton's the largest municipality in the county. I guess when you get into the larger municipalities, just the percentage of calls, volumes, are they just more prevalent in those cities? I guess I'm just, if you're thinking about population, it was just curious to me that you're triple the call volume in a population that's only double in actual population in the next neighboring community. So just curiosity, I just was curious if there was any method to the madness to that.
I think one of the factors with that is Interstate 20 and the transient population that's in the Villa Rica area. Those are not city limits, defined by city limits. When that says Carrollton community, that includes all the Carrollton zip codes.
No.
When you talk about Villa Rica, it includes all the 30180 zip codes.
Okay.
So it's not just the city limits, but anything that is covered by a Villa Rica zip code or a Carrollton zip code.
And the mention of the QRVs, is that something additional West Georgia Ambulance has done, or are you talking about in general what we've done at Carroll County, adding the QRV fleets that we're trying to man and get those countywide?
Our supervisor used to ride an ambulance.
Oh yeah, Gary, sorry, if you'll step closer to the mic.
Sorry about that. Our supervisor used to ride the ambulance. So it was real hard to be a supervisor if you're already working a cardiac arrest. You can't do anything with what you need to do as a supervisor. Plus, they were confined to that ambulance. We pulled them off and created our own quick response vehicle, and that way that supervisor is not tied to an ambulance. They can go back up an ambulance, or as Greg mentioned earlier, they can first respond to a call, determine if that patient can go by some other means than an ambulance, and cancel that. So that's in addition to the QRVs that the fire department has put in place.
Okay. And where I'm going with that question is that's an even extra layer of, hopefully, if someone's fallen, and we're talking about the stress of the ambulance drivers, maybe if the QRV, our Carroll County Fire's already gotten there and gotten them up and maybe, gotten them stable or whatever the situation, it's less that the actual ambulance drivers is having to do maybe by the time they get there, assuming they're not the first on the scene. So anyways, I guess it's a compliment that you all are doing that, plus we're doing it to maybe help ease the burden over time of the stress on just the ambulance drivers themselves or the medics.
Absolutely.
Excellent working relationship between West Georgia Ambulance and the local fire departments and other public safety officials and departments. And all those things, Commissioner Chance, are done to try to free up those 911 ambulances to only answer 911 calls. Another example that was in there is we privatized the transportation of coroner cases. Previously, it's in the county contract that West Georgia Ambulance is responsible for transporting coroner cases to the crime lab. West Georgia Ambulance implemented prior to acquisition doing that by something other than an emergency ambulance. Then, due to staffing crisis at the crime lab would call at midnight and say, you got to have this body over here by 6 a.m. in the morning. The only thing available then was an emergency ambulance. You're taking an emergency ambulance out of service for about 3 hours to make that trip to the crime lab in Decatur. So we privatized that. There's a private company that does that now. We pay for that service, but none of those, we never send an ambulance now to go to the crime lab to make that transport. It's done privatized. All of those things are done to try to ease that burden. Our non-emergency trucks, which are 12-hour trucks, previously they did a lot of discharges, taking people home from the hospital, transporting somebody to the doctor. There are other services here now that do that, and that is their primary focus. So we felt like our number one commitment was twofold: to the county contract, and then to take our patients that are in the hospital that need to go to a higher level of care. So we moved those non-emergency trucks, we put paramedics on them so they can now help with those transfers and jump in and answer 911 calls when all our normal 911 trucks are busy, all to ease that load you're talking about.
And I appreciate the efficiency of that. I know that was a original concern through the years, is if something had to be taken out of the zone, so to speak, the county's real investment here is not in the profit or loss of the ride, if you will. It is providing to make sure when you call 911 within a reasonable amount of time that service can arrive at your doorstep. That's all the questions I have. I think the numbers are telling of a growing community and so on and so forth. I think for me, I just want us to be able to look at the contract, the prior contract, looking at the monetary values of what does that fair assessment line up to be for the county's commitment. But those are all the operational questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schulenberger, the first thing I'd like to say is we miss your mom, Julie, being an active
Thank you.
member here.
Thank you very much.
I wish her all the best. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I did wonder, with that being said, about response times, just bottom line, would you have any data you could just throw out that says because of reconfiguring the transport call situation, then we have improved actual emergency response time from X to Y?
Sure. And Gary can help me with this. I can tell you it's improved over the last year about 6 minutes on average per call, which we're really proud of. It's right now in about the 13-minute range. Keep me honest there.
12 to 13 minutes.
Yeah. So prior to that, it was in obviously the 18, 19, 20-minute range. So we have improved that with most of these things that we've talked about here, but there's still work to do there. There's still work that we have to be more efficient. We have to, make shorter runs. We have to consider those transports that take us out of service for long periods of time and get really creative and strategic around how we do that. But we have seen improvement, and really proud of that.
Yeah. How does the 12 compare to, I guess, a grade A benchmark of?
You want to help me with that, Gary?
I think, Commissioner, that you'd be looking in the 5 to 7 minute range. I'm going to defer to some of my EMS partners back here. Does that sound about right? If you're looking at Metro Atlanta, a top-notch service, you're in the 5 to 7 minute range. The issue you have here is I'll give you an example. Look at Highway 5 east of Whitesburg. Every time you make a run at Highway 5 east of Whitesburg, that's a long run, and that wears your average out. You can't make that run. That closest ambulance is generally in the Clem area, and so that's a long haul for that ambulance. But those calls are so few and far between, it's not economically feasible to put an ambulance in every one of those communities, but you supplement that through your local fire stations. They first respond to those calls. They're a lot closer, as you saw by that diagram earlier. So we partner with them so they can get there and start treatment, and then we can transport.
Okay. Well,
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Steve.
So do you average that time in? Let's say we get a QRV there in 5 minutes and then the ambulance doesn't show up for another 12 minutes. So how does that, I mean, they're already getting treatment from the folks on the QRV.
Your fire department tracks that time separately. We track the time based on our dispatch to our response time, because we have to track those times for the state. How long it takes us to get there, how long we're on the scene, and then how long it takes us to transport to the facility.
Do you have any numbers, how often an ambulance gets a call, a fire truck or a QRV shows up, and the ambulance is called off, turned around?
I don't have those numbers here tonight, but we can get those, because we're pulling all this data from your 911 center.
But they are helping, right?
Oh, yes, there's no doubt about that. And the flip side of that, which is very rare, but if we get there and we don't need the fire department, we cancel as well.
Right.
So we don't waste resources either side.
Okay. Ernie, one more question, and then I'll give it
no,
back to you.
I'm done.
There's a number on here that jumps out at me. Vehicle insurance, $42,000. That's $42,000 per unit?
Annually, yes, sir.
Per unit?
Yes, sir. But that's not just vehicle insurance. That's also the liability on that insurance, the liability on that vehicle. We just went through our insurance renewal, and this was a little bit shocking to me. I should have been aware of it, but I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah.
Is that I can have a 2000 model ambulance and a 2024 model ambulance, and the liability is the same. It doesn't change. Whereas you all know, if we own an older vehicle, the vehicle part of that, but the vehicle part of our insurance, that part is almost, I won't say negligible, but is a very low cost. It is that liability cost. And our loss ratio for insurance last year was very low. It was very good, but we still took a hit on insurance because of the propensity in Georgia, I guess is the right term to use, to have higher claims.
66%.
66%. So you probably know that too, and as you look at your insurance each year.
Oh, we know that. See Tyler Paul Smith, he'll help you on that.
Sorry, Ernie, go ahead.
No, that's all I have.
So Commissioners, we will work with Tanner, Alicia and I, and we'll work with probably Chief Barnwell and come back to you at the April meeting with some costs and what we can and can't do to, well, I shouldn't say can't do, but what we will partner. Oh, Dan, do you have a question?
I do have a couple of questions. I appreciate you talking to me yesterday, and we talked about a lot of it at depth, but on that information I asked for as far as inside city limits, not zip codes of the city, can you break that down and that information at some point? Just from a personal...
We will do our best.
Okay, I know it's going to ask a lot, but it's
Yeah,
just something I kind of...
that's a little tricky based on how it's tracked now.
Okay.
But let me work on that.
Okay. And as far as your non-emergency trucks, kind of explain to all of us, you got your emergency trucks, non-emergency. How many do you run of non-emergency trucks now?
Non-emergency trucks, we're running 2 during the day.
Okay.
In addition to the current 6 emergency trucks. And then we run a single non-emergency truck 12 hours at night.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the improvements you're making in response time. That is appreciated, and what you're doing to pull away the transport non-emergency. Bottom line, as one of your constituents, and speaking for my constituents that are in the Hoytsburg, Rooteville areas, if any of us were to have a heart attack or an emergency need, we'd like a little better than 12 minutes, and so if we can get there, that would be great. Yeah.
And we appreciate your support of our partner agencies back here, because they help fill in that gap.
Yeah, good.
Well, we appreciate what y'all do, and you never know you're there until you need you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So anyway, we'll come back in April, working with Tanner, working with Chief Barnwell, working with Alicia, and we'll bring you back some options on how we can make this happen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on our work session agenda is Project Stable, an MOU, and I'm going to call Brian Dill, the CEO and President of Carroll Tomorrow, forward to give us a little hint of this exciting project.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I want to thank you for having me today, and thank you, each of you, for working with me over the last few days on all the due diligence questions that you had on this project. Special thanks to Ms. Blackman and her team on clearing up the MOU draft that is currently in front of you. We've worked really hard on making sure it's standardized in format to what we've done in the past with the Payroll Development Authority and our other authorities, and also working with the assessor's office on the backside of anything that we put in front of a company, making sure that all of our parties understand going forward on these agreements, the requirements to perform and the requirements to produce what they say they're going to do. I don't have much more to add other than can answer any additional questions you might have on the project. I think I did share with all of you that this project started at the end of 2022. It was a competitive project looking at multiple sites throughout the southeast. This is a relocation of an existing industry into the community. We did have one question that came up in our due diligence phase in terms of any relocated employees. We have asked for a formula and a percentage of how they will go about doing that. As of this afternoon, we were told that those employees have not been notified of this relocation, and so we're waiting on that answer, understanding that we still are under a little bit of a confidentiality agreement with the new company. So with that, happy to answer any questions. My hope is, as we walk through this process, the finish line is next week, and we're able to turn around a quick public announcement in that process as well. So very excited.
Mr. Deal, thank you for your efforts and certainly efforts in bringing quality commerce into our community with jobs as well. One question I have, and this was answered some years ago, but essentially through your bargaining of putting together essentially a tax abatement agreement, you have some internal protocols. So if there's things in there that they're going to make a certain dollar amount investment, obviously if they're going to have a range of employees, of employment, and so on and so forth, you have an internal mechanism to make sure during that full 10 years it's not just, hey, we've cut your taxes, but we're making sure that you're upholding your end of the bargain. So you have some internal tools that you, I'm assuming, annually would check in and make sure that those criteria are being met. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Great question, and a couple of ways as we stack that. First, we look at the minimum capital investment requirements is what that company is willing to commit to. We hold them accountable to that, and then the minimum job creation. Job creation has to be an agreed upon number. It has to be an agreed upon minimum salary range start. In this case, generally 120% above average minimum wage at the county, regardless of what the industry is. And then any incentive or any statutory incentive that we offer has to start at a minimum level. In the past, we've always started that at 5 million and 25 jobs. What we've just completed is a wholesale review of all of our incentive policies, and we're walking through that process with a consulting firm called Boyette Strategies. We just got the second draft back for that. And what we hope to present to you is a standardized, transparent, uniform policy that is a tiered strategy. In other words, it starts, most likely now, we'll start at 10 million and 25 to 50 jobs, depending upon the industry sector. But those are internal to the MOU. And then we have clawback provisions with an annual audit each year. That audit is performed and the company submits their data to us. If they were instructed to have this amount of capital investment and so many jobs in year one, they present that to us. If at any time during that process they fail to meet that criteria, we give them a right to cure under the MOU. They have a certain amount of time to provide that documentation, and if there is force majeure, or if there's, anything internal to the contract that says, yes, but we work through them, we work with them to try to make sure they're doing it the right way. But there are clawback provisions. You don't want to do that, but if it's a public incentive that's being offered and they're not holding up their end of the bargain, there's expectations that they pay some of those incentives back.
Thank you.
I'll just second that, I guess worded another way, in that, on the one hand, we do appreciate what you're doing for Carroll County, bringing good jobs, and good paying jobs with good longevity, to our residents, including my children. And we don't want Carroll County to just be a bedroom community for the metro. So thank you. It's nice when we can look forward to not only us, but our offspring continuing to work and thrive in this area. I did have a comment too about tax abatement, and that I'm glad to hear that you have a very systematic now approach to this, working with the consulting firm. I think systematic approach is what I try to force in some ways here with the county. And the more we have a systematic approach to things, the less we have aberrations and conflict that comes with that. So hats off to you about that. But tax abatement in general, I would be opposed to, but the offset makes it tolerable. And still, though, we have to think about, the burden that we put on our schools and our roads and that kind of thing when we bring a business in. But if there are offset benefits to that, it's tolerable. So, thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I share that thought process. And I would tell each of you, we look at that through the lens of a competitive project. Now, the companies who have site consultants do it too. They understand when we say the word competitive, what that means. It is but for any incentives or localized opportunities to locate, they go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, the site consultants understand that term, and so you have to really filter, do you really need assistance? Are you coming here regardless? And so we kind of look at through that lens, and in some cases you have to guess, and others you have to basically say, all right, company A, if you really want to have the opportunity of being in our community, we have expectations as well. So it's worked out fairly well for us.
Commissioners, are y'all good with putting this on a consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank Brian. Thank you, Joseph, for being back there.
Thank you,
too.
Madam Chair. Members of the commission, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to go onto item 4, a county admin building update. We have Danny Yates again with Director of Public Works, and we have Josh Henson with Balfour Beatty to give us a short update on where we are.
Thank you again, Chairman, Commissioners. I don't know if y'all have rode by the College Street complex here of late, but I'd say right now we are roughly 75%. The only structure left is the main school building. The whole inside is gutted. The roof is off now. So next week, weather permitting, we will actually start taking that building down. But I wanted to give you a few numbers of what we've done so far. The difference between the tipping fees where we've hauled off the debris, the trash, and the scrap iron that we have hauled to SLM is $700. And that is counting, we have kept 3 48-foot trailers of steel that is usable for the county.
Great.
That's Z purlins, that is beams coming off the buildings. The one building we took completely apart other than the tin. So it is, we actually have a steel skeleton of a building we can put back up somewhere.
Great.
And I know a lot of people say, well, sure it's taken them a long time. This building we're in now, which it was built in the 50s, it was built to stay there. And my main thing is I tell my guys, fast as you can, be safe. Don't let nobody get hurt. So they have to take their time when they're working, and it's, the actual walls is what holds this whole building up. It's 4 brick thick. You knock out that wall, there's nothing holding part of the roof up. So that has slowed us down on that. And we have actually only done this, which I think is pretty good. We have about 20,000 in labor so far, from my man hours I have there and the guys out there working.
You got that much steel left on the roof?
Yes, sir.
About it.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So they've done a really good job. And we done, when we started the work, we had our inmates and our guys, they actually went inside and pretty much demoed the whole interior of the buildings, the trash, and put it on cans to haul off. We used very little tractors. We lost very little material. It all went on the cans. And that's another thing. I try to express to my guys how clean I want them to keep it. I know it's a demo site. It's not always going to look clean, but I try to make sure the trash is picked up, things look in order. And they take about 1 day a week, they'll take and try to sweep the asphalt to where the wind's not blowing and it's not blowing onto people's houses and such. Yeah. So we're trying to keep the neighbors happy. Right now, as far as I know, we've had no complaints. But that's where we are right now, as of
How's
today.
Moorhead doing?
Sir?
How's Mr. Moorhead doing with the grinding?
He has not started. I will get, when this building starts coming down, is when we will get in touch with him and let him come on site. That way, once he starts, he does not have to wait on us. He can just keep going and be done.
Well, I want to say, as far as the process of what you all doing, I've ridden by there. I try to go by at least once a week, just riding by, and I really like how neat it looks. You know, you
Yes,
think
sir.
of a lot of demolition groups, and you go by and the whole thing is just a big pile of rubble and, like you said, dust and stuff. And
Yes, sir.
I'm sure some of that is y'all weeding through trying to get steel and stuff.
Yes.
But other is you're just taking down what you can at the moment, not just demolishing everything. So I think I know I don't live over there, but if I did, I think I would be very pleased with how you all have handled taking it down segment by segment and trying not to make it a big mess and an eyesore. So I think your group is to be commended on that.
Yes, sir. And also, when we started on the roof project, we took every one of them air conditioner units off the top, and they are in storage. So, and if you think back, I think them units are on up to $30,000 and $40,000 and $50,000. There was nothing wrong. One of them was not but a year and a half old. So it is actually in storage, and just in case we ever do need one, we have them. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see all of you again. So I want to commend Mr. Danny. With the work that he's done has been remarkable. So it's great effort. But want to provide you a quick update of kind of where we are, where we stand. Next Friday on the 8th, we're hosting an informational session at the Carroll County Recreation Facility. Intent is to attract local subcontracting business, tell them about the project, who we are, how they can engage, and basically the schedule outline for when documents will be coming out and the bid process. So hopefully we'll get a big turnout. I know it's been advertised, and we've spoken with Times Georgian, and I know it's city menus and also through y'all's social media. So we're excited about that. And as far as next steps after that, we will put the first package out the 11th. So we meet on the 8th, and that following Monday, the first package will come out, and that'll be for the foundations, steel, and long lead items. So mechanical, electrical, plumbing, elevator. So basically everything that kind of drags out in today's market, try to get ahead of that. Following that would be the next phase, which we would set the GMP. So first phase, plan to come back to you in, it'd be the May timeframe, the May meeting, and then set the GMP in the July-August timeframe. So that's kind of where we are, and working hand in hand with Jericho and team, and the team's collaborating well together. The documents are progressing, as planned. So it's kind of the quick update. And if y'all need anything in the interim throughout those phases, please feel free to reach out, and we'll share the documents with you, and as we progress with the cost. And but as of now, everything's sitting good as far as the initial budget. So.
One question I have is, when there was original talk, I guess, that there was going to be fence netting that was going to be put all the way around, and I'm not necessarily saying that it has to be. Danny and them have done a good job. It's not been a dust bowl. Maybe there's a safety issue that you can see right through the fence versus if there was something up. But in the same note, that was something specifically, I think, that your company had stated that you were going to do. Is there a reason why that, was it relooked at, or could you not get it, or did you think we could just save money that way? I was just curious.
No, so that was the intent. So I actually was at the site to install it with my guys, and we got about 500 foot on and ended up pulling it off. So we've had a few issues on some other sites, and I think it's been a problem kind of, I don't know why it's just now becoming a problem, but across many sites from a liability aspect. So Christmas Day, we were cleaning up fence off of Peachtree Street downtown. So the liability with the wind and the loads that it puts on the fence, that's why we opted to take it down. So really it needs to be an engineered system, and when you contact the fencing companies or windscreen, that's a double-edged sword to try to get that engineered to carry that load. So that's why.
When you put your bid packages out,
Yes, sir.
will you require a performance and payment bond from those subcontractors?
No, sir. So they will actually run through our pre-qualification process.
Okay.
So.
Okay. There's no other questions. Thank you, Josh, for coming down.
Thank y'all for having me.
Now call Felicia Searcy to do our financial recap.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have the January financials in front of us. We're 1 month past halfway now, so we're starting to get a pretty good idea of where this year's probably going to end up. At the end of January, we had $57,984,000 in revenue, and that puts us at about 79% of budget. We're running, as a percentage, we're running a little bit behind last year. We were at 80.59% on our revenue numbers last year. Our total expenses at the end of January were $40,878,000. As a percentage, that's 55.82%. Last year, we were running 58.55%. So on our expenses, we're doing really well as far as gauging that. There was one thing that I wanted to point out. There's actually a credit in the current month on Superior Court. That's due to the ARPA grant reimbursement. So those are expenses that are being reimbursed back through that judicial ARPA grant. On the SPLOST projects, just a little update there. Last month we had $87,000 in expenses on the admin building. A big portion of that was the finish up of the environmental, and then we had a pretty good payment on the architect for that. So that project, as they just told you, is moving along pretty well. Our big payout was on the Villa Rica Fire Station. We had $440,000 paid out there, and a large portion of that was paid to Caliber One. And that's where a majority of our expenses on the 21 SPLOST are. Anybody has a specific question?
Ms. Searcy, on, I guess thinking ahead, this is obviously a federal election year. Historically, things have tightened up before the November race, typically in every election year, at least at a presidential federal election year. What I'm seeing right now is around July or August, they're predicting we could have anywhere from 2 to 4, percent decrease in interest rates and so forth. That'll be reflective of that economy kind of shrinking up a little bit. So you and I have followed the interest rates very closely. We were doing very well, and then we went to basically making nothing, and then now we're back up substantially there. So how volatile are we in that particular category as far as any fixed rates, or are we going to fluctuate immediately if stuff starts falling off?
Well, right now, we've got a series of investments that are out 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, all the way out to 6 months. And right now, interest rates are best at right around the 6-month mark. Anything over that, you're earning a little bit less than you are at the 6-month mark. It's hard to say what interest rates are going to do, but the banks that I'm talking to and the investment people are saying that there might be a reduction in interest rates, but not a big reduction. I don't think the Fed's going to make big adjustments unless inflation really, unless the economy really slows a lot. But right now, we're still looking at about a 3% annual rate, which is higher than the Fed wants on growth. They want it in the 2s. So I don't know that, I can't stand here and predict what will happen, but I think based on that information that the Fed won't pull back a lot, and as long as they don't, and I can continue at the 6-month mark with the Treasury bills, and we're above 5% on those, so that would be my goal, is to maintain that level while maintaining adequate cash flow for the projects that we've got moving right now, which is a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. We'll now move into the agenda for Tuesday night. As I told you earlier, 9.1 we will bring back at the April meeting after further discussion. 9.2, we're going to have our Chief Judge Magistrate, Nathaniel Smith, come before us for the Palatine e-warrant system. And I heard you on the radio, so I probably already have a good idea of what you're going to present.
Thank you all for having me this morning. Can you hear me? Excellent. I just want to thank you all for everything that you do, of course, and got some people here behind me. I want to thank them for being here. I've got some law enforcement officers, it looks like, some people from the fire department, sheriff's department, all people, of course, and the community at large who would benefit from this system. And you may say, well, what is this Palatine system? What is that? By way of just a short course educationally in the warrant system, what happens currently is an officer calls me and says, Judge Smith, no matter what time of day, no matter what time of night, it could be 2 a.m., could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got this case. What I've got going on is I need to meet with you. If it's an arrest warrant, I need to meet with you to go over some stuff regarding an arrest warrant. If it's a search warrant, they'll ask me, depending upon the nature of the search warrant, if it's a Superior Court search warrant or a magistrate search warrant. I said, well, come on over and see me. If they're in Temple, I guess it doesn't matter. It could be in Temple, Bowden, Villa Rica. No matter which stretch, it's about 22-minute drive if you don't run into traffic from any location outside of the city of Carrollton to come down over here at Magistrate Court. If I've got a meeting out in Bowden and you're coming from Villa Rica to Bowden, of course, you're running about 40 minutes to get over to meet with me. But they locate me. I swear them in. What do you got going on? There has to be information that's probable cause for an arrest or probable cause that a crime has committed and that there's evidence to be located at a certain location. We've had 2 in particular cases that come to my mind this year already where they have had someone held up in a house, not in the city limits of Carrollton, but out in the rural area where an officer comes to see me and I may look at the document and go, well, I'm hearing you, but we got some problems. Your location is wrong, or the color of the house, or we're not meeting basically all the requirements of probable cause. So, well, Judge, I'll fix that and we'll drive back to the office and make these changes. And drive back to Temple, drive back to Whitesburg, Villa Rica, work on the warrant, drive back to see me over here at Magistrate Court, or drive out to my house. I live downtown here, and they come back, add on another 20, maybe an hour, depending upon their typing speed. Come back and see me. You did a great job at getting this information in there. Sign off on the warrant, make copies of it, give a copy to my clerk, and they go and execute the warrant. If it's an arrest warrant, as in these two cases that I was mentioning of, in one of those cases, they said, he signed the warrant, execute it. And we send it we fax it over, email it over to that location. They go into the house and pull the person out, transport them to the sheriff's department. Two incidences of that this year. But in the meantime, as all this goes on, we lose time. And time is so precious sometimes when it comes to safety, loss of evidence, or a person potentially, one of these cases, a person ended up barricading themselves under the house. In the other case, the person was held up in I believe it was a closet or a bathroom with firearms. But the safety of our citizens is paramount when it comes to this stuff. And we haven't had an electronic means of getting this done. Palatine is a company that does this in Coweta County, Douglas County, Cobb County, Paulding County, Fulton County, DeKalb County. We have lots of areas where our own officers will call Palatine and say, hey, I need to get a warrant done for a judge out of Fulton County. And they make it happen with judges in other counties because they're on the same system, and then they have a access code because it's web-based now, and they can get that warrant done without having to drive X amount of miles. So what I'm wanting to is adopt the same basic system. I've been in communication with the chief up in Villa Rica and the chief here in Carrollton and Bowden, and made some stops. And this municipalities, including the fire department that's also here, we've had a huge run in arson cases last year. I was told it was one of the harder years that we've had, where I signed a number of warrants for arson cases because they would use this same system. The sheriff's department would use this same system, and it would alleviate man hours, gas, wear and tear on automobiles to drive from Villa Rica to Carrollton for this system. There's some, I believe you have it, there's some documentation that you have in front of you, I believe, which discloses what this is going to cost us if we do it. And I say what it's going to cost us, I will tell you that these municipalities are in such a desire to have this that they're willing to assist in paying for it. There are some upfront costs that we won't have, I guess, long-term. One is an integration fee, which is about $3,500 if you look at your documentation. And that integration fee is what that does, is that right now at my office, this is how my warrants are held. There's a bunch of binders. And every time you come and get a warrant is signed, it goes in that binder. And we just have binders and binders of documents. And then the case 2 years later or a year later, when it comes to Superior Court, we'll get a notice that says, we would like the warrants. Or we would like to know what the officer said. And I go, well, I can't tell you what the officer said. That was a year ago. I don't recall. I just have no idea. I don't take notes on what the officer says. All the notes are in that document. And we'll try to find it. Can you give me the date of when that happened? Well, I don't know the date. Well, that's the only way we have to look it up, is by the date. Thank God for our sheriff's department, because what happens is our sheriff's department, they maintain all the warrants, even though it is my responsibility at the magistrate court to maintain those records. I took the job not knowing that we don't maintain it, but we're supposed to maintain it. This puts us in line with the job we're supposed to be doing, which is maintaining that record for that case when it does go to trial. So that $3,500 integration fee will cover that, and that's a one-time deal. There's a subscription fee. The subscription fee is $12,000. That's $12,000 a year. The larger municipalities, in terms of manpower, in terms of cases, have agreed to basically take that on at a cap of $4,000 a year each. We've been working out some details with that, but they're all consistently, we will pay $4,000 a year maximum to pay for that $12,000, and that's the city of Temple, the city of Villa Rica, the city of Carrollton. I'm missing somebody. Who am I missing out? The sheriff's department. But that will cover that cost. There's also a $1,500 training fee, and that's a post-certified training fee, but we only get that fee one time. And that's because a lot of these municipalities already have a training department, and what they'll do is they'll have the training, and then they'll just keep retraining their people. If the system, if Palatine changes something, we'll work that out when the time comes, and if it comes, that it changes. They've done a lot of things to upgrade their system. Over the years, Cobb County has been using it for years. They used to have, you had to go to a certain location at a certain time to do it. Now it's, they've readapted it to what they call anywhere warrant, which means you can literally get a warrant almost anywhere because it's web-based. If you got a laptop and you've got your name and your information where the system can identify you for purposes of security, you can use it if you're into that system. So anybody within Carroll County will be able to use it. They will actually even be able to run it out of their automobiles if they're, of course, willing to pay the fee for it. And a lot of the cities are currently saying, well, we won't need to use it in our automobiles. We'll use it at our offices. The fee for automobiles is $20 a month per car. But right now, none of the cities are saying that they want to do that. They're going to opt out on that part. But that is a fee that each municipality would be, they'd have to pick up that fee. Other than that particular fee, there's also a $275 fee. That fee is for hardware. We already have the hardware. The hardware is simply a computer and a Scribner by way of you being able to sign off on a document to sign the actual warrant. The officer signs the warrant, the judge signs the warrant, and that is it. We already have that software, not software, that hardware. We have Office Surface Pros at the office that each one would be assigned to a magistrate, and so we're already there on the $275. We won't have that fee. Other than that, that is all the fees. I'm asking you all to authorize the commissioner. We have a technology fee that we take up through magistrate court. We're asking you to take some of those funds and basically direct those over so that we can use those funds to pay for this system, this licensing system. I think this particular program, the way to do this, it saves our community by way of safety and security. It saves our community by way of funding for time, gas, automobile maintenance, and I'm asking you to do that. Again, I believe I did leave somebody out. The solicitor's office is here as well. A number of people, in terms of people that are prosecutors. I even had somebody from the defense bar contact me about it this morning because presently, right now, when an officer comes in to see me for a search warrant, there is no recording of it. Under this particular system, there is a recording. The officer, when you do that virtually through that program, I swear the officer in, and after he's sworn and he gives a statement, I may give a statement, all that is recorded and saved. Right now, that does not happen. So this is something that is a win-win, I believe, for everybody involved, and I'm just simply asking you to approve it.
Do y'all have any questions for Judge Smith?
Judge Smith, thank you for being here
My
today and for the presentation. A couple of questions. As far as you stated that the hardware that we have, I'm assuming that you have talked with IT. It's something that if we had to work on something, or maybe there's support from this particular company, and I guess along in that same question, to invert another question, is the commission had made some investment some years ago that basically you had all the courts that had something totally different going on, and one court or the law enforcement might not know exactly what was going on, something get delayed. Is this particular software something that the other departments can utilize, or is there anything that could be better or not? And where I'm going with that is everything sounds great until you get into something and someone said, oh, I wish you had gone with company X. Did you not know it would do A, B, and C, and this company only does A? So I guess just I'm sure you've covered that, but just asking you the question for the point of reference.
No problem at all. I did, before we went down this road, I did meet with Julian Bush and some other people over in the IT department and have them look into the Palatine system and whether or not we would have problems, just as you were referring to. They have signed off on it, that's how we also came up with the Surface Pros and things like that. So the IT section of it is squared away. There are some issues with it, with of course integration, but in speaking with them, some of that we won't know until we start moving data over. The warrant process is the initial process for the starting of a criminal case. When someone is arrested, that initial document, all the information comes in from that document. And so from there, the magistrate court is the only court that issues warrants. No other court issues warrants. So basically what I'm looking at is when that information comes in, are we able to transition that information to other locations? Right now, we don't transfer it at all because we don't maintain it. Any information that we maintain is a piece of paper, and so we're behind the curve. This puts us ahead of the curve, and it also gives us the ability to have our same officers who are building cases to work with other counties, again, faster. Crime is not centrally located here in Carroll County. A lot of the time, some of the bigger cases that we see are cases of people who are transitioning through here, forgery cases, drug cases, cases that come down the corridor through I-20, and these people are flock cameras and things like that. We are needing to get access to information in other counties. This Palatine system is used in the circle that surrounds us, because we're right up against Alabama. Again, from Coweta County, circling up through Cobb County is sort of a ring, I hate to say a ring of crime, but a ring of cases that we get involved in from people sometimes that are fleeing or coming in this direction, again, whether it be trafficking drugs or forgery cases or bigger scale theft cases, where we have the ability to be able to track information via cell phone or automobile tracking system, where we need to be able to cooperate and do things with other counties to be able to locate people and see where they're coming from and where they're headed. And right now, we're only doing that through flock cameras and from people actually coming, again, driving to the magistrate court and finding, coming to see me at 2 a.m. And I don't have a problem with that. I welcome it, but I'd like to be able to save that hour of time that we miss from a drive from Villa Rica to Carrollton or from Temple to Carrollton, or a case where we've got drugs being flushed down the toilet because we're waiting on a warrant.
Sure. Well, it definitely makes sense, and I think it's something that would bring us up to the times. My only other question, and I did speak with Ms. Blackman about this earlier, I went through the MOU, and it sounded like there were, I guess, still some ambiguity on some things as far as how the reimbursement would come as far as some of the partners. I think it had stated if someone had a certain amount of law enforcement officers in their municipality, they would pay X amount or whatever. And then there were some other questions as far as the annual renewal. Would there be a cap on that? Right now, I think the language basically says that there could be an increase. So I have worked with Ms. Blackman, and that's my only thing, is just maybe working out some of the particulars before Tuesday to put the MOU and the contract more in line with some things that we've done outside of just the scope of what you're doing, but some of the standards, I guess, that we've asked. So that would be my only
I understand
addition to that.
The some of the smaller cities, such as the city of Whitesburg and Roopville, Mount Zion. Roopville does not have a law enforcement agency. Whitesburg, I'm signing probably 1 or 2 warrants for Whitesburg a year, if that. I think I've only signed maybe 1 warrant out of Whitesburg. I haven't done any search warrants for them. I think I'm maybe running about 2 or 3 warrants a year out of Mount Zion. So the issue came to be of, well, if you're only doing 1 or 2 cases for us, why would we spend the money to be involved? Why would we spend $4,000 when it's not going to really cut our costs to drive to you? Whitesburg also indicated that they were concerned that they only have 1 officer on duty at night. So if that officer leaves Whitesburg to come and see me, then there's nobody really there. that was some concern for them. But in the end, it was simply vocalized, well, we really just don't have the funds to put there. And speaking with the other cities, Temple, Villa Rica, City of Carrollton, those cities are in a position like that this is going to really benefit us all. We just need to do it, even if it costs us more, which is how we ended up at the $4,000. Contractually, in terms of the MOU, I think I spoke to Ms. Blackman about if they do more than 10 warrants a year, that they would share in the cost. But situationally, we need to be fair to all the municipalities, but at the same time, we don't want to harm our community by not doing something that benefits us all when we can do it. Why should we put it on the back burner because somebody may not have the money to do or something, when we really, as taxpayers for the entire county, we have the money to do it, and we also collect funds through magistrate court, through the technology fee. If we have the money to do it, it benefits the community, we should do it regardless. And that put me again in the mindset of, hey, we're just going to go before the commission, just like I'm accountable to the community. I mean, so we all are. So just wanting to do the right thing regardless, and that's basically it. The contract, I've gone over it, I should say she's gone over it with me, and I think you all have that contract. In terms of the Palatine contract, the cities that want to do it, they're busting at the seams to do it because they realize how much this benefits their cities and everybody at large. And I would just urge the commission to adopt it.
So I got one question for you. So on those cities that choose not to participate or pay that part of the portion of it, will they be able to use this system? I represent Mount Zion and Bowden, so will they be able to use this system? And if so, what was their take on, I understand Mount Zion, so you explained that, but have you spoken with the city of Bowden and what their take is?
They would be able to use it, and again, what I was saying earlier is that if Mount Zion and Bowden are gonna use it, again, looking at about 10 warrants a year, some kind of way to get them to contribute into the cost of it, to defray the cost from everybody, I guess, then I don't want to keep them from using it, but if we're going to be running it a lot through Bowden or running it a lot through Mount Zion, what have you, then I think the county in general, in terms of the other cities who are paying for it, we would want them to contribute in some shape, form, fashion, or another. But we by no means want to be in a position where we're like, no, you can't use it. I mean, they pay taxes just like everybody else do, so.
Well, I represent those two cities, but I agree also that they need to chip in and contribute to this. If it's going to benefit them, they need to have some skin in the game also. So that was my question.
What that cost would be, I don't know.
Okay.
But again, they're my neighbors, and I care about my neighbors. Whether if they ain't got water, I'm gonna take them some water, man.
There you go. Thank you.
So, well, to follow on with what Danny's saying, we could bill them per use? Okay.
We could figure out some kind of way to make it fair.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be in a situation where we're just gonna say we're not gonna do something because we can't figure out a way to.
Commissioners, are y'all good with putting us on a consent agenda?
I'd just like to say, Judge, good to see you.
Likewise.
I think this is in today's technological age and even yesterday's technological age, we should have been covering this topic about 12 years ago. I understand your predecessor, a good friend of mine and neighbor, wasn't altogether for a lot of computerization. But with this having to benefit not just your office, but other offices, the sheriff's office, coroner's office, and so on, I think it's just a given that this is something that not only should be done, but should have already been done.
I'm fine with consent, just with the understanding that I just for myself want to talk with Ms. Blackman about not even so much, I mean, yes, it is, the judge is working, it's a first time thing, you're working out how this is going to reimburse for other communities, but basically the company itself, like not just an open-ended, we understand the price may go up next year. Well, it could go from 12,000 to 30,000. So just making
did
sure
give
that I
us
can look in that.
My apologies. They did give us some numbers on that. I want to say the first year at 12,000, the second year at 12,600. The third year would remain the same at 12,600, and we would have to come back to the table thereafter. But those were the numbers that were communicated to us for the next 3 years.
Thank you.
And I just anticipate some of it may just be an issue in terms of inflation. I mean, everybody always throws some sort of figure in there in terms of inflation.
Okay, everyone else good with consent? Okay, great. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. I really appreciate all your time tonight. And again, thank you for all that you do. And you all as well. Thank you.
9.3, we heard earlier, Project Staple, it's on consent. So now I'm going to call 9.4, Danny Yates on a GDOT right-of-way projects MOA for Hickory Level Road.
Thank you again, Commissioners. Yeah, the chairman received this agreement from DOT a couple of weeks ago, and the West Hickory Level Road bridges that they have already begun all the preliminary engineering work and all on, it is going to require some right-of-way and some utility relocation. Well, in the past, DOT, if a right-of-way was required or utilities need to be moved, the county paid for it. They took care of all that. And now the DOT, they kind of went to, whether it's some counties or people took their time, didn't get in a hurry about it. They kind of do all the legwork now. But what they do ask is the county still fund a portion of the right-of-way and utility relocations. So what they ask is, there's 2 bridges on West Hickory Level Road, and both are slated to be rebuilt. And they're asking for $50,000 per bridge for right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation. And once the bridges are completed, project is closed out, any funds left on each one of these bridges will be given back to Carroll County. Any of the funds that we put forth, they will refund any funds left. And this will come out of the Public Works SPLOST Roads and Bridge Fund.
Any further questions?
Does that sound like a reasonable amount to you, 50?
Yes, sir, I'd say it is. I know up there's not a lot of utilities, but there is going to be some relocating of them. And the utilities we moved on Tice Carrollton, when that road was built, it went up to almost $200,000.
That 50,000 can't increase?
No, that's what is on the
Increase it
invoice,
costs
50,000
every
per bridge is what is on the invoice. And that's what, Mr. Lee, that's what I said, if I'm willing to give 50,000 for nearly $1 million bridge.
Right. I was just wondering if it costs more, does DOT pick that up?
I would assume so, because their invoice is 50,000 per bridge.
Gotcha.
Are y'all good with putting this on a consent agenda?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, Thad Ferguson, Recreation Director, we have 9.5 and 9.6 for you.
First up is first of all, thank you. Good afternoon. First up is the donation of the infill machine. So December 2022, if you remember, we bought a brand new infill machine. So we now have one that has pretty much kind of been collecting dust since then. The baseball coach at Mount Zion was a former part-time staff member of ours, and also a gentleman who grew up through our rec department, Randall Wright. So we keep in communication with him, and he's been asking for about 1.5 years now, since we got the new machine, what we're going to do with the old one. So again, it's collecting dust. It's not usable for us at the moment. Has no part value for us. So we'd like to donate that to Mount Zion High School so they can get use out of it for their baseball program.
Are y'all good with putting that on consent?
Let me think about it. No, I'm good.
All right, Thad, if you want to talk about the equipment purchase.
Yes, ma'am. So we are, for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been trying to re-up our mower fleet, so to speak. We had a lot of mowers when I took office, or took office, when I took over. that were running about 18 to 20 years old, and you can see that in the notes there. But we're looking to replace one of the oldest 72-inch mowers that we have, which is a little over 20 years old now. So this would be an awesome upgrade. As you know, we have a lot of grass to maintain at our complex and also Oak Mountain. So we were able to get two quotes from local Exmark vendors, one Douglasville Ace Hardware, and then also from Lake Carroll Lawn Equipment. Due to, I'm assuming, the government bid, both of the prices are exactly the same down to the cent. So we would like to go with Lake Carroll just because we do business with them. That's where we typically get our parts at for our mowers. Most of our fleet is Exmark, and we just have a good rapport with them, and they offer good customer service as well. So,
And they're local.
right down 5 minutes from us, so it is close.
So you answered my question. So you didn't bid this out, but you did go obviously get some quotes, but you went after a specific brand.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
like our Sutton fire trucks, that's something that we can get parts off of or
Correct.
whatever. So you feel confident that you want to continue with the Exmark, and that's something that we're not going to be, hodgepodging stuff.
No, I would say we've got one John Deere mower that was there long before I was there, but just about everything else is Exmark, and this actually would replace a 72-inch Exmark that was bought in 2002. So,
I don't have a problem as long as we're continuing that trend for a reason, but if we hodgepodge stuff, I think we should, bid it out. But I don't have a problem in this particular case by what you've explained. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree to that. I initially wondered, and then I got the answer. But, yeah, I don't want to disadvantage our other local dealers either, but if we want to stay with the same one because we already have mechanics and that kind of thing that are servicing others, then it makes sense, so.
Are y'all good with putting this on a consent agenda? Okay. We'll now go to 9.8, an ACCG Summer Intern Grant. Jacqueline Doss, Director of Solid Waste.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. With the help of Ms. Linda Bingham, I submitted an application for a summer intern to do some research projects around solid waste, increasing our recycling rates, as well as trash reduction. We were one of 45 projects selected out of 90, so it was a highly competitive grant cycle, and I'm very honored that we will have a summer intern. This is fully paid for by the ACCG grant, and basically I'm here today to ask you to give the chairman permission to sign and accept this grant.
I look forward to seeing the information they putting together.
Me too.
Are y'all good with putting this on the consent agenda? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
All right, 9.8, Board of Elections appointment we'll do Tuesday night. 9.9, the Pathway Center Community Service Board. This is an appointment from the Sheriff's Department, so that is why the name Major Shane Taylor is already mentioned. If y'all are good with honoring that request and putting it on a consent for Tuesday night?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then we'll move into 9.10, the Carroll County Agricultural Education Center Committee. I'm open for discussion on this.
I guess I can start. I appreciate the committee that was formed and put together. I know the chairman solicited different names, and there were some highly qualified individuals from a lot of different backgrounds, obviously that supported ag, but that came still from different backgrounds. I just want to make sure that whatever policy we have in place, that there's a clear defined area. Obviously, the chairman runs day-to-day operations. Does that give you the ability to make an exception on something? And if it does, we know that up front. Is it something that has to come before the Board of Commissioners? And I'm not suggesting that it does, but I think just outlining, obviously, everything, especially when you start with something new or you revitalize something, it's going to take you a while to work through it, right, and see where we may need to adjust even again. So that's my biggest thing, is knowing that there will be adjustments throughout, but just making sure that we understand as a board on the front end. Yes, we know the chairman runs day-to-day operations. We also know that we have Ms. Burke, who does a good job for us out at the Ag Center. But just making sure that there's a clear defined area of the chain of commands. If there is an exception, what exceptions can even be looked at, or no exceptions looked at, or can everything be considered an exception and then someone else or a committee or the chairman or Ms. Burke or whoever, is there someone else, just so in the future that we have more of a defined, clear understanding of how those things are reviewed. But I appreciate, like I said, the chairman embodying the committee, and I appreciate all of the committee members who put forth the effort and time to come up with a good proposal. And basically, what I'm taking from this is, obviously we understand ag is still a very huge and important component in our community, and we want to continue to advance that ideology and classes and opportunities, and we want to make sure that we don't have things that don't relate to ag taking up time or space if we have the opportunity to implement additional ag courses or whatever that may be in promoting that ideology. So anyways, those are my comments.
I know I speak for the ag community in my district when I say, number one, yes, thank you for the efforts of the Ag Committee, and then also, Paula, thank you for your efforts in trying to navigate through all of the directions that you've been given. And thirdly, I think, you know, several years ago, where my father-in-law and several others that are now part of our old population of farmers who are even retired and so on, put a lot of effort and a lot of funds into creating this Ag Center for the purpose of educating the youth and having a center where ag facilities could be administered. And so I think, as the Ag Committee has put out in attachment B to their response, that this center ought to be reserved for and used for the ag-centric functions and needs of our community, not for things outside of that, except if we may want to say, well, if a government entity like the sheriff's office or something wants to use it for one night or something, I mean, maybe that's necessary, I don't know. But outside of that, I think it should be reserved for ag functions. I also have heard that Paula and her staff can utilize the Ag Center facility basically 100% of the time, and there are ag-related functions now that have to be foregone because other folks are renting it. I don't think that should be the case for this community. I think the Ag Center's there. It was funded and constructed for that use, and if entities that are now not able to use it because it's being rented out to other folks, I think that shouldn't happen. So I don't think that we should spend too much time on what the rental amount should be, because from what I hear, it shouldn't be rented out much anyway. So the rental amount to me is a minuscule topic, and I think we should focus on having the Ag Center for ag-related activities and have it used for that 99% of the time. And if there is an exception, it should be for maybe the sheriff's office or whatever to hold a function for whatever the government needs are. but I am for having very clear direction, and I think we have been very helter-skelter, and to you, Paula, I apologize, as a member of the board, that you have not had, clear, succinct, delineated criteria to go by, and, for the upheaval that has raised, heretofore in the community, and we need to get rid of that possibility and give you what you need to manage that facility properly, given that it is an ag facility. So that's about all I have to say on that.
Okay, well, I have a question. All right, so what I'm hearing and from what I see right here, we want to eliminate the veterans organizations that use it, the Kiwanis, the Lions, the Rotary Club, Civitan. Is that, we're going to eliminate those folks?
Well, you got to draw the line somewhere.
Well, here's what I suggest. These folks have been using this place for years. They're all 501(c)(3)s, or they're a 501(c)(19). Those are military organizations. American Legion, VFW, that sort of thing. These organizations have a charter and they're governed by a set of bylaws that come from the state and from national. So they're all insured. When they walk in there, they have their own insurance. Paula, if you want to come up here and correct me on this, you can. But I think I'm right. So what I would suggest is if they are a 501(c)(3) or a 501(c)(19) with a national charter, then we should allow them to go in there. Because I hate to kick the veterans out, and I hate kicking out some of these civic organizations where that money goes right back into the county. And these veterans organizations, when they go in there and do things, every dime they make goes right back to the veterans. So we're going to hamstring them.
If the facility, however, can be, if there are programs that are ag-related that, from what I've heard, programs are being deleted now that are ag-related because the facility is being used by other entities. And if the facility, I mean, it's just very simple. If we can use that ag facility for ag functions that are there that are not being able to use it now, and it can be used 99, 100% of the time, then I don't think we need other type entities infringing on that. If there is opportunity where the ag center is only being used 90% of the time, and we do have a 10% window for it to be used for those type organizations, then maybe we can use it for that. So I'm open to hearing what the situation is, but I don't want to disadvantage our ag-related community because of other entities. And the information I have so far is that we can use it 100% of the time for ag.
So let me, and I apologize for my voice. I've been sick this past week. Since I've been department head since 2012, ag has always been given the priority to have their events there. I can't think of any time that I would have bumped an ag event for a private event or even a civic group. So ag has always been the priority. I think by not having private events such as birthday parties, retirement parties, things like that, that's and really pretty much moving forward since the first of the year, we have not been booking those. So there are open weekends, there are weekends or even, as most during the week is very busy because we have a lot of regular groups like the cattlemen, the young farmers, extension programs, etc., that have regular meetings each month. But weekends have opened up. I talked to someone yesterday that's thinking about putting together maybe a cattle showing course, so we can definitely be moving forward and booking those as they come about. So I just wanted to give a little clarification.
Well,
for
I
that.
mean, let's take the American Legion barbecue. That's done once a year. It's scheduled a year in advance. The pancake breakfast from the Kiwanis, it's done 3 Saturdays in February. It's scheduled a year in advance.
Correct.
So but I agree with Commissioner Reynolds, ag comes first. So, I mean, we could tell these folks to move around that.
One thing I have done as department head over the years, to give you an example, this summertime, July, August, I've always reached out to our regular users, cattlemen, young farmers, master gardeners, and said, can I get your bookings, so to speak, your schedule for next year? And I always get them in first. And so literally, 2024 has been pretty much planned since last July, August, for the most part. Obviously, things will come up here and there. So that's how and that was my way of making sure ag had the priority and got them scheduled. So with that, moving forward, if there's something that one of the veterans group wants to do, booking into next year or later this year, my known ag events are already booked. So I would say there's some wiggle room.
Well, Paula, would this take some of the burden off you if, when somebody came to you and said, we'd like to use the facility, if your first question was, are you a 501(c)(3)? And if they're not, then it's over. It ends right there. And are you bring it to the chairman's office?
Yeah, I would think in some cases that would be helpful. I could think there's a couple groups, I'm not sure if they technically have that designation. And there's a couple things I can think of that maybe, might be approved but may not have that designation. My first question's always been and still is this an ag event? We still, not every day, but we still are getting calls as we go through the new year of people wanting to book their private events. And first thing we ask is what kind of event it is, and if it's a birthday party, we say no at this point.
I guess my question to you would be, what would help you do your job out there that you can approve? What would you need from us?
Sure. So I would say, obviously, our UGA extension and all our ag organizations, and if it's an ag-related event, I think it would be helpful for me, and Commissioner Morgan and I have been, conversing for the last few months about this. If it's not ag-related, I just send it up to her and get her approval, and then, obviously I would check the schedule, make sure the date's actually available. It's not going to be bumping another ag-related event. And then I feel like there's no question put on me of what I approved or disapproved and upsetting anyone, because I don't want to do that.
Well, that sounds better. You shouldn't have to,
bear
the heat on that. That should come right here.
And I think in the past, and I say past since, last year, even previous chairpersons, was always said, well, if it's ag or community related, they can use the facility, and that's what I always went by. But moving forward, obviously ag is still always the priority, and then if it's not ag related, I have no problem, conversing with the chairperson and chairwoman and getting whatever approval, or if it even has to come to you all.
But if it's open-ended like that, ag or community-related, that could be so broadly interpreted that you get right back in hot water on week number 2. So what about having defined, specified, delineated criteria by which you can go by, the exception to which can only be granted by the board, and that specified, delineated criteria would be that the ag facility can be used for ag-related purposes only, including UGA, ag extension programs, and those other entities as specified by the Agriculture Committee on their attachment B. If we want to add any to that, now's the time to do it.
Sure.
And any nationally chartered 501c3 blah, 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 whatever, Steve, that you mentioned, and I'm fine with that, but we need to not just leave it wide open. We need to say limited to the Kiwanis Club, the Veterans Association, the so-and-so, and the so-and-so, period, end of sentence. And that's it. And then you have black and white, non-nebulous criteria to go by. And it leaves no interpretation at all. And I don't see what would be wrong with that. That's what we need, I think.
agree with that.
I'll do whatever direction you give me, so whatever you folks would like to do.
So I'm agreeing with everything I'm hearing here, but in the same note, that has to be written out, right?
Yeah. Right.
It's not all verbally. So to Commissioner Fuller's point, one of the things that has come up in this is obviously, you know, if you wanted to come in and rent the kitchen or you wanted to have a birthday party. I know when I was on the library board, one of the things that was significant there is if you were meeting about community significance, it was acceptable. If it was something personal or a baby shower or a birthday, it was automatically out. So some of this I think we're able to easily weed out. But the main thing that came from this is the Ag Center itself was being taken away from its original intended purpose. In that same breath, one of the reasons this Board of Commissioners has made such an investment in that facility is because it was utilized more than any other facility in all of Carroll County, i.e. the pancake breakfast, the sheriff's soup tasting, all these different things that I think could be argued as community significance. I'm in the Villa Rica Lions Club, and I can attest to Commissioner Fuller, while we don't use that facility, everything that we do pretty much goes back into the local community, or we help local individuals or families, with the exception of national dues and things that go to help larger projects. But I think what we have to do, what we have to realize, we're not going to get it perfect right off the bat, but we need to recognize that ag is a priority. We need to recognize that the investment in the facility has been also for these other civic-minded organizations that have been having events there for 10, 20, 30 years, however long they've been there, and I don't think we need to just boot them out. But my suggestion would be to, between now and Tuesday, and I'd like to hear what the chairman thinks is having to run day-to-day operations, but I'd like to see something written out of the directive of the board and the policy that's in place. We can sit and say all day long it's black and white, but every ordinance, everything that we do from this board has an appeals process, whether it comes before this board, whether it goes before a board of appeals, whether it goes to staff at administrative level, whether that administrative level then brings it to the chairman who runs day-to-day operations. So to me, as a board, we need to have that clearly defined, and it may change in 6 months, it may change when we revisit it in a year, but there doesn't need to be any ambiguity if there is a variance, no pun intended, given on something. What is the clear chain of command of what that looks like on a sheet of paper?
How about we do this, if you don't mind? Why don't I put you and Steve together? We remove it from Tuesday night because it only leaves you tomorrow and a few days over the weekend, and put it back on the April agenda, and the two of you come back with their recommendations and maybe put it more into a formal write-up. Does that sound better? Do the two of you mind working on that together?
As long as we can have Stacy.
Ms. Blackman agrees to it. So would that be good? Just go ahead, and then if any of y'all others have some other ideas, if you want to let Steve and Clint know, and we'll look for a discussion and a more formal document for the April meeting.
I'm good with that. Sounds good.
Okay, great. All right, well, that is it. That is all we have on our agenda. So if y'all are good, we'll close out the work session. All right, thank you.